Using a 2 by 2 design with factor A defining the rows and factor B defining the columns, create a set of means that produce each of the following patterns. A. A main effect for factors A and B, but no interaction. So here I drew the four-way box for a 2 by 2 design, and then I labeled the rows A, and then I labeled the columns B, and then I chose numbers based on the part of the question, which was to achieve a main effect for factors A and B, but then to have no interaction. And so the numbers that I came up with were 6, 8, 4, and 12. And then I decided to calculate the average for each of for the rows and for the columns. And then for the row, I achieved m equals 7. And then for this row, I achieved m equals 8. For this column, I achieved m equals 5. And then for this column, I achieved m equals 10. So then you want to take your numbers here, or your averages, and then you want to actually graph those so you can see if you have any interactions or main effects. So then you draw a little graph here, and you start with 7 and 8, graphing that on your graphing that. And then actually I need to write some numbers on the side so that we'll have a reference point. So I decided to do 4, 6, 8, and then 10. And it's not perfect, but it just kind of will give you a general idea of where to plot your points. So like I said before, you start with your side, I guess your column here, 7 and 8, and you graph that first. So 7 will probably be like right there. And m equals 7 will probably be right there, and then actually erase that and put it lower. M equals 7 probably be like right there, and then like m equals 8. If you go over 1, it'll probably be like right there. And then if you want to draw a line, you can, and when you draw a line, you get that. And then the next thing that you are going to graph is 5 and 10. So again, you start with 5. So 5 would probably be like right here, right there. And then 10, you would kind of go up because 10 is all the way at the top. So you would angle all the way up if you can. And then again, you draw a line. And it's not a perfect line, but you can kind of see based on the numbers that you have a slope. And so just by simply looking at the graph, the fact that you have a slope tells us that we do have some sort of a main effect present. Obviously, if we wanted to make for sure, we could calculate and then determine that way. But in this problem, we're just going to simply look, and then just by looking, we can see that we have some sort of a main effect going on. Because if we didn't have a main effect, our lines would be virtually flat. And then the next thing we have to determine is if we have an interaction. And an interaction would mean that our lines will be crossing each other, either like right in front of us on the graph just by looking, or if we, for example, continue to draw these lines, like eventually at some point they would cross. But here we can see that these lines are relatively parallel, and in order to achieve no interaction, your lines have to be completely parallel. So these lines are pretty much parallel. So we can see that we have no interaction, yet we have a main effect for both factors A and B. And just erase this part here. The next part we're going to do is trying to achieve a main effect for factor A and an interaction, but no main effect for factor B. So again, we draw our little box here. I decided to use the numbers 800, 750, 200, and then 500. And again, we get 775. Oh, that was really bad. M equals 475, and then M equals 650. So again, we do the same thing. This time we want to achieve a main effect for factor A, and then we want to achieve an interaction between the two, but we don't want to have a main effect for factor B. So go ahead and graph that again. And then basically I just kind of wrote 200 down here and then 800 at the top, basically. And then, again, graphing your numbers, 775 would be somewhere up here. So you would kind of draw a dot there. And then 350 would kind of be towards the bottom. So you draw your little dot towards the bottom for 350, and then draw our line, and then we would go ahead and do 650, which is kind of like over here, somewhere towards the middle a little bit, and then we do 475, which is a little bit lower. Actually, I'm going to erase this and make it a little bit higher. So like right there, and then 475 would be a little bit lower, like right there, and then we would draw our line. And so by looking at this, we can see that we have an interaction because our lines are definitely crossing each other, and we know that interactional lines must cross, but we do not have a main effect for factor B. We do not have a main effect for factor B because our line is kind of almost flat, but not really, but sort of. So in this problem, we can see that we have an interaction, but we do not have a main effect for factor B. And we do have a main effect for factor A because there is a deep slope. So now I'm just gonna erase this part. And lastly, we're going to graph a main effect for both factors and an interaction for both factors. So one more time, draw a box, and then 900, 800, 300, 700 were the numbers that I chose, and then I got M equals 850, 500, M equals 550, M equals 800. So once again, draw our graph. And then 400, 500, 600, 800, and then erase that out the way for now. And the 850. Draw that back there, right there. Okay, so once again, we start with 850. 850 is here. And then 500 is like right there. Draw a line. So we can see we have a deep slope here. And then 800 is like right there. But 550 is like about middle way. So then draw a line again. So again, we see here that we have a slope for both problems, which indicates some sort of a main effect. And then we can see that we definitely have an interaction because these two lines cross each other. And again, if you wanted to like check and make sure that you had a main effect or an interaction, you can always do the subtraction method, or you could compare your means to your critical value if you're given a critical value, and then you can determine that way as well. But just simply by graphing, we just look at how the lines are positioned in our plane, and then that's how we can tell if we have interactions or main effects.